Russian military on alert after suspected Israeli airstrike destroys Russian missiles in Syria. Tens of thousands of Russian troops have been placed on alert after a suspected Israeli airstrike destroyed advanced Russian missiles recently delivered to Syria. There were several pre-dawn explosions reported in the Syrian port city, and it says here that when they talked to the Free Syrian Army, they described the July 5th attack by saying it was not the FSA that targeted this. It is not an attack that was carried out by rebels. The FSA spokesman went on to say that this attack was either by air raid or long-range missiles fired from boats in the Mediterranean, suggesting that Israel is behind the attack. So far, Israel has not commented. In May, Israeli defense minister said that basically Israel will know what to do in the event that Russian missiles were delivered to Syria. They've also carried out previous airstrikes in Syria, including attacks on vehicles carrying weapons towards the Lebanese border. These Russian-made anti-ship missiles, it is speculated that it could have been considered a threat to Israel's naval forces. So Israeli strike on Syria was carried out from Turkish base. That's what they say. Israel used a Turkish military base to launch one of its recent airstrikes against Syria from the sea. Russian military stages biggest war games since Soviet times. It says about 160,000 servicemen, 1,000 tanks, 130 planes, 70 ships are taking part in Russia's biggest military drill since Soviet times. The war games will continue in the country's far east until July 20th. The maneuvers are the latest in a series of surprise military checks, which were performed by Russia in an effort to reveal and oust flaws in the country's defense program. Pakistani Taliban sent hundreds to Syria to fight shoulder to shoulder with rebels. We've pretty much already covered this. But I saw an article today about how the United States, or I think it was NATO, had killed like 20 Taliban. It makes me wonder. It's like, okay, well, there's Taliban over here, then you should probably go get them, right? But then you hear about talks, sitting down with talks to with the Taliban. So it's just like, you never know. Who knows what the hell is going on here? But whatever it is, it doesn't make sense. Pakistani branch of the Taliban has sent hundreds of men to Syria to fight alongside the rebels in the battle to topple President Assad. The militant organization has reportedly set up camps aiming to foster ties with al-Qaeda's central leadership. But just last week we covered what we're basically trying to tie it in with this one of those individuals that was part of this Taliban. That he's been all over, including was it possibly Algeria, but we're talking about basically CIA aided and trained funded assets. Free Syrian Army clashes with jihadists in wake of commander's assassination. Fighting in Aleppo widens cracks and splintering opposition as military gains are reversed. Months of uneasy calm between jihadists and the mainstream Syrian opposition spilled into fierce fighting in Aleppo on Saturday, days after the senior Free Syrian Army commander was assassinated by a jihadi group. So this is bad news for the Assad government, mostly because they're already having issues with the economy. And so I thought that was going to be one of the main things that was going to bring them down. They're just going to, like they do to other countries, they try to just starve them and turn the people against their government. Such as things right here. Families trapped by fighting in Damascus mosque. But it seems like now now they got two things going on. I don't know if this was planned or not. But now they got the Free Syrian Army fighting against the rebels. And then, of course, you got both fighting against the government. It says here, heavy clashes between government forces and rebels broke out yesterday on the edge of the Syrian capital, where the government has been pushing to retake key districts that have been in opposition hands for months. They seized the initiative in the nation's war over the past 3 months, basically getting back territory lost to rebel forces. So this is crazy because the same thing is pretty much happening in Aleppo. They got these people that are protesting because they don't have any supplies and they're basically trapped. The rebels have basically sieged the town. U.S. promises Israel new Iranian president will be met with hostility. The U.S. to threaten Rouhani even more than Ahmadinejad. Last month, the U.S. Was basically greeting the election of the reformist candidate as Iran's next president as a hopeful sign, while simultaneously patting themselves on the back and taking credit for his election. But if Rouhani was really the candidate the U.S. wanted, they have a funny way of showing it, as U.S. diplomats are now reassuring Israelis that the U.S. will treat Rouhani with intense hostility and will up the sanctions and threats against Iran going forward. Netanyahu threatens to attack Iran before it's too late. How many times has he said this, right? Insists Iran getting closer to the red line. It's pretty funny. He says it's the only thing he cares to talk about on television. He issues essentially the same statement every few days. Israel plans military revolution to face new regional threat. So their armed forces, the most powerful and best equipped in the Middle East, are changing. Older tanks and aircraft will be retired. Some 4,000, maybe even more professional career officers will be dismissed. A range of other changes over the next 5 years are intended to make the Israeli military leaner but more effective. Sound familiar? It's funny that they said big military players like Egypt. I don't know when they were ever really a big military player. Like I said, their army is just used to suppress the people, carry out regime changes. Syria, their country has been weakened from it. Iraq, I mean, geez, look at that place. And so this is all benefits. This all benefits Israel. Israeli forces, especially when they are trying to expand, Israeli expansion, and carrying out operations in the Sinai Peninsula, basically post Morsi in Egypt, from Egypt. Israeli forces attack Palestinian protesters. So the security forces have attacked Palestinians living in the Negev desert amid a protest against a plan to relocate them. So they were arrested during a Monday confrontation, which erupted after Israel announced a $130 million plan for the economic development of the southern Negev desert. Israel says it's doing what's best for the so-called Bedouin people of the Negev desert by resettling them in nearby towns, but the Palestinians say they will fight for their homes. They said the plan complements the Israeli military's massive relocation of air and ground bases to the region in coming years. Lastly, Israeli soldiers frequently attack Bedouin villages in the Negev desert and raze down their homes. Nearly half of the Bedouins live in villages that are not recognized by Israel, and they have no access to municipal services like water and electricity. Religious soldier attacked an ultra-Orthodox neighborhood, third such incident in the past week in Jerusalem, as police are searching for 2 assailants. Recently, Israel just passed a law which included non-ethnic Jewish people, I guess immigrants, and these ultra-Orthodox into the army, this compulsory national service. So I guess a soldier was walking in the neighborhood just north, It says here 2 Orthodox men attacked the soldier and a scuffle broke out. The soldier said that he was spat upon and told he would burn in hell for serving in the army. The incident comes amid a wave of anti-military sentiment in the extremist ultra-Orthodox neighborhoods, which have vowed to fight recent legislation that would see them included in the Israeli Defense Forces mandatory draft. The Israeli regime shoots down their own drone again near Egypt. So Tel Aviv has shot down one of its drones over the Egyptian border due to a technical failure. It was shot down over the border area on Sunday night due to engine malfunction. The report added that the flight operators noticed the breakdown and decided to perform a controlled crash on the Israeli side of the border. And you guys probably already know this, but they're one of the biggest drone producers. But it says here, July 7th, an Israeli F-16 warplane crashed into the Mediterranean Sea following engine malfunction. The U.S.-made F-16, which is Israel's latest and most advanced warplane, crashed west of the Gaza Strip. So are they being hacked? I don't know. Pentagon denies U.S. is about to invade Egypt. Says Pentagon, the U.S. Embassy in Cairo denied reports in the Egyptian media that an American task force in the Red Sea is preparing to invade Egypt. Pentagon Press Secretary George Little took to Twitter on Sunday to say such reports are absolutely wrong. Some Egyptian press reports suggest U.S. Navy ships are near the Arabian Peninsula or Suez Canal in Egypt to invade them. Those reports are absolutely wrong. It says we deny false claims in the Egyptian press. Then we have El Baradei sworn in as Egypt's vice president. So this guy is basically, a Western citizen or American. A leading reform advocate took office as Egypt's interim vice president Sunday. Such a joke, reinforcing the role in the new leadership of liberals who are strongly opposed to the deposed President Muslim Brotherhood. I actually remember hearing back when after the Arab Spring that either the U.S. or Israel was surprised or caught off guard by the Muslim Brotherhood getting in Egypt. I'm also aware that the Muslim Brotherhood is kind of a Western proxy, so it can go either way. I mean, they're still controlled. Like I said, the army is just there not to do any kind of external operations, but internally just manage the regime that is placed in there by the West, be they right, Muslim Brotherhood, or left. Like I said, basically the Egyptian people lose over and over again. Iraqi shoppers targeted on revolution anniversary, 77 killed, 223 wounded. This is kind of far out there to stretch, but I also remember hearing about some conspiracy theories about stargates, and one of them being located, like they have artificial ones underground, underwater, and that, but also natural ones, ancient ones, and one of them was located in Iraq, and they were talking about how they have all these negative entities coming out of it, and I don't know if that has anything to do with it. It could just be that it's like Libya, they go in there, they take out a regime that they were supportive, the West was supportive Gaddafi for a while, let him do his thing, and then same with Iraq and Saddam, same with Syria now, and then eventually when they pull their card, afterwards you get all just death and destruction, because hey, that's what they do, create chaos. So Libyan armed forces to be trained in the UK. The British Army will train up to 2,000 Libyan troops in the UK, the Foreign Secretary has announced. All right, moving on. Obama hiring contractor for African bombs. The administration franchise on continent continues to expand to ramp up its military response capabilities in Africa, where it is now looking for contractor support to transport U.S. AFRICOM troops, weapons, and explosives. I believe this is the UK. It says here, amphibious warfare first strike options eyed in defense policy revamp. So all this revamping, right, is all global. Defense Ministry will explain its plans to boost the amphibious and preemptive strike capabilities of the self-defense forces in its interim revision of Japan's long-term defense policy. Oh, okay, so it is Japan. The move underscores the focus the ministry is putting on defending the nation's outlying islands as tension with China continues to simmer. I came across an article as well today that said something about China actually there was Chinese ships present near this island, basically. And also Japan publicly, officially declared those islands as, nationalize them. Air Force 2027, fewer pilots, more drones, more challenges. Air Force in the future is likely to be slightly smaller, more reliant on remotely piloted aircraft, face growing challenges from the rise of Asia and rapidly increasing space traffic. They said, in a struggle to maintain its technological superiority as the U.S. produces fewer scientists, engineers, and other highly skilled graduates. Well, we don't really need them anymore because we don't really manufacture all that much. I mean, yeah, there's some manufacturing still, but for the most part, we don't. And so that goes to China. That's why you have people from China and India, mostly, going to all these nice universities here in the United States. How is this taking place? Well, their middle class is strengthening. So just like how we had extra money to send our youth to colleges to get these engineering degrees and get these stuff, and they would actually have jobs because there was manufacturing. That's what they're doing. No, we send people to go to be advertising to sell all the cheap crap that the Chinese produce. Lawyers, doctors to sell all the pharma pills, teachers to brainwash the youth that this is great and this is progress. You can check this out, just type in this headline, the militarization of the world's oceans. To do with Germany, it's economically heavily dependent on the sea. So it says here this foundation expressed in a current position paper for new military capacity building in the German Kriegsmarine. All right, next up we have China naval fleet seen off northern Japan. So there you go. First time they were spotted sailing through an international strait between northern Japan and Russia's far east. Talked about this before. China's economic corridor via Pakistan. The Pakistan-China developing transport link to the Arabian Sea. At their sites on Friday, developing this transport through the rugged Pakistani mountains. I'm talking about Gwadar. And of course, reopening the Great Silk Road, or U.S. backs Kazakhstan's intention to join the WTO. David Cameron defends controversial Kazakhstan trip with pledge to secure UK jobs. Pressure groups have called on the Prime Minister to raise human rights issue with the regime. And I just thought about something. I've never really seen Kazakh people, but you talk about the Khazars and where Jews really come from, at least what they call themselves, and they do actually kind of look Jewish, which is interesting because you had Sacha Baron Cohen, which I think Cohen's a Jewish name, play someone who's Kazakhstan. Hey, look at this. Kazakh foreign minister meets Zbigniew Brzezinski. Costa Rica constitution may block U.S. military entrance. They claim it's not good for peace and sovereignty to have warships to fight drug trafficking. Latin American countries recall ambassadors from Spain, France, Italy, and Portugal over Snowden neo-colonial flap. This Kremlin security agency buys typewriters in response to NSA news. Heroic effort at great personal cost. Edward Snowden nominated for Nobel Peace Prize. Obama hails George H.W. Bush points of light. Lights of Lucifer?